This is KTVO's Good Morning Heartland.
Welcome back. We've all seen changes in our memory as we get older. Sometimes we or our family might start to question, is this normal or is this dementia or Alzheimer's disease? Now today we have Dr. Justin Puckett, the medical director at Complete Family Medicine, here to discuss it. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on. So first of all, is memory loss very common as we age?
You know, it is actually a part of our normal aging process, and varying degrees can be a normal process. Of course, as we get a bit older, whenever we're more stressed, maybe when we're sick, whenever we just don't seem to catch things as quickly, or maybe have that trouble finding that word, and that can be a very normal thing. But it also can be an early indication that there may be something bigger going on.
So when can we tell the difference between, some people are like, oh, I forgot what I was going to say, oh, I had a brain fart. When can you tell the difference between that moment or something more serious?
Well, it can be very difficult to do, but usually the thing to look for is that your long-term memories are going to be intact without any deviation. So those things are usually going to maintain intact. If those memory changes start, those I can't remember things start to turn into a real repetitive pattern, and especially if it's not just the memory pieces but also some behavioral changes. So whenever someone's not maybe having as good a hygiene as what they used to, or maybe whenever someone is whenever they're not keeping their hair done well, or they're losing their keys but they're finding them in the refrigerator, just something completely out of the ordinary, that may be a contributing problem. Also, whenever they have trouble with just general speech comments, so they're not only having trouble finding those words, but maybe the things that they're saying just don't make any sense at all. And then can be mood changes as well, that accompany that. And if that kind of conglomerate comes together, then that's something that you probably ought to seek an evaluation for.
And what should we do if we have concerns? Say one of our family members or a loved one that we know is experiencing these types of symptoms and signs. What should we do?
Well, the first thing would be to go see your doctor.
Okay.
And there's a couple different assessments that we do. There's what we call a mini-cog, which is an abbreviated form of some questions that we ask to kind of screen for that. And then there's a more comprehensive SLUMS, what we call the SLUMS test, which is a series of questions asking about just some common questions. Where are we at? What county are we in? Don't want to give too many questions away. People be memorizing the answers,
right.
But and just telling a general story, and then even having some drawing and some comprehension questions. So we use that we can score that, and with pretty good precision, it will tell us if there's something going on.
And is that how then somebody is diagnosed?
That's how the diagnosis is clinical. There's at the end stage of the disease, there can be as the brain cells start to die, areas in the brain that are filled with fluid might get larger, and if we look at it microscopically, even which we can't do really well at this point in someone who's alive, but we can see that there's some plaque formation, and even on MRIs in severe disease, you'll start to see changes.
So once somebody is diagnosed, what should family members expect after that?
Well, it's a chronic condition. Medications that we have some minimal impact in slowing the progression. So every once in a while you'll get lucky and start a medication, and somebody will really make a jump back to where they've been and gain some function back. But really, we think of the medications more than anything as just kind of maintaining where we're at. And it requires a lot of accommodations. Of course, the number one risk is for people to wander and get lost and get beyond their normal realm, and then put themselves in a position of harm. And so it's really important that you're evaluating if your family member is safe to drive, and working with your doctor on that care plan, and making sure that we maintain their safety.
And let's really quickly touch base on the legal aspect. Should we start looking into legal documentation, changing things, having a power of attorney, stuff like that?
Well, I think everyone should have that. And if anybody doesn't have that, it's easy to do. You can find those resources on the state websites and can produce those documents. But absolutely, and it may become, especially while that family member is maybe showing some early signs but still able to converse, you want to be able to get that medical advance directive so that you can understand what that patient wants. Because often with these memory diseases, the cause of death is just slowing of function, and so people just stop swallowing, stop eating. They're just not hungry. And helping the rest of the family kind of understand that normal disease process and what it looks like, because sometimes it seems a bit harsh, but you know, in my mind, it's a chronic disease that that we can try to slow down, but putting in feeding tubes and those sorts of things in people who have a low quality of life is something that, a discussion that can be had, but not something that I would want done for me. And so letting my family know that in advance would be important.
Now, really quickly, talk about sundown syndrome. I've heard of that before, and I've heard it in movies, but what exactly is that?
Well, we know that some people, and it can be with or without dementia, that whenever the sun's coming down, especially the time that they're sick or stressed, that they become more confused, more agitated. And so if you notice that seems to be isolated, it can be something to talk about with your doctor and to see if there's something more going on. But it can just be a thing where you need to keep that elderly family member busy, active, draw the blinds, keep the lights on in the evening time. We don't really understand why it happens, but it's something that's well described.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll post everything on our website at ktvo.com. We'll link up Dr. Puckett's information if you have any questions or concerns. Again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.